All right. Hey, everybody. So today we're going to talk about the next project, which is to create a fictional movie poster. Um, I'm going to, in this video, go through the Photoshop tools and techniques that might help you with this. And we're going to look at some examples, and we're going to talk a little bit about doing image search on Google. So I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna start with sharing some examples of movie posters. So, and you can do this on your own as well. I just went into Google and typed in movie posters, and you can see, of course, they're trying to sell you movie posters. Well, don't, you're not here to shop. You're here to find inspiration from the movie poster images that come up here, okay? Now, this is just a general search and just kind of getting myself into the brain space of what do movie posters look like? What is it in these posters that is useful information? What can I use as inspiration? And what kinds of things are the posters doing that are helping us to understand what the movie is about? You can also refine your search if you want. You can look for famous movie posters. We got The Exorcist, Jaws, The Shining, um, Almost Famous, The Godfather, Clockwork Orange. And as you're looking at these, think about, have you seen any of these movies? Does the design work really successfully show you what the movie is going to be about? And if you haven't seen the movie, can you deduce a little bit about the ambiance of the movie, or what kind of movie it is? Is it going to be a drama? Is it a comedy? Is it a independent film? What information can you glean from the various elements of design in these movie posters? Maybe we'll look at, let's see, minimalist movie posters. Interesting. Ooh, this one's good. A Christmas Story. Let's see. Okay, so that's just a place to get started, thinking about what do movie posters look like, what are the key elements, what kinds of information do you want to include in your fictional movie poster. After you've gotten some inspiration, it's time to start thinking about how you're going to put the movie poster together. So the first thing that I want you to think about is, well, what is this movie poster that you're creating, or what is the movie that you're making up? You need to give it a title. It needs to not be the title of a movie that already exists, but you don't have to do a deep dive to find out if there's something out there that already exists with that name. But maybe do a general search, or don't make a poster for Jaws, because we all know that's a movie that exists, right? So be creative in thinking about what your title is, and then think to yourself, well, what is this movie about? What kind of movie is it? Is it a thriller? Is it a romantic comedy? Is it a sci-fi movie? Is it in the vein of a famous director? Are you really into films, and do you have a favorite director? You can take those things into consideration and use those things as you are creating your design. So I'm going to make a poster for this demo called Return of the Laser Cats. It's an action film, okay? Is there a first movie in this series? I don't know. Maybe there is. Maybe this is a sequel. And that question I don't have to have answered for myself right now. But so let me go back to sharing my screen, and I'm going to bring us to Photoshop. All right, here we are. For this project, I want you to make your document 11 by 14. So just like we did with the last one, we're going to make a new document, and we're going to title this either movie poster or title it with the name of your movie. So this is Return of the Laser Cats. Now, remember, when you're in here, you want to make sure that you are working in inches. So we're going to make this 11 inches by 17 inches. Again, make sure you're working in inches and not one of these other forms of measurement. And once again, because we might want to print these out, we're going to make them 300 pixels per inch. Keep your color mode at RGB color, 8-bit, your background contents white, your color profile Adobe RGB, and your pixels square. Okay, so now you have a sense of the space that we're working with. It is a vertical, and it is fairly tall and skinny. And this is a blank canvas. It may be kind of intimidating to start with. And you can start anywhere you want, but maybe the first thing to start with is really just by changing the color of that background. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my paint bucket tool, and I'm going to choose a color for the background of my laser cats. I think it should definitely be hot pink. And I can just click on my blank canvas with that cursor, and that's kind of an offensive color, and make it bright pink. Notice that it changed the whole background. You can do it this way. You could also create a new layer that would house this color. So I'm going to step backwards, and I don't remember if I showed this to you in the past, but you can always go to edit and step backwards. And I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer for that background color. And this just allows me some more flexibility in my editing. So I'm going to go down here to my layer palette, and I'm going to create a new layer. You could also go up here to Layer, New, Layer. And you could give it a title if you want. I'm just going to leave it as background or as layer 1. And now, because I decided I didn't like that pink, I'm going to come in here and change that again. Yeah, okay. So now you'll see that that hot pink color is actually in layer 1 and is not in my background. From here, the next thing that I might want to do is I might want to add my type. I might want to add the title of the movie poster or the title of the movie. So I'm going to come over here to my type tool, and you can approach this in a couple different ways. You could just bring your cursor onto your canvas and click, and it gives you the flashing cursor, and so I can start to type. Something that I'm noticing is that I can't see my type because my text is in fact the same color as this hot pink. And remember that with all of your tools up here in your submenu, you have all of the various options that go with that tool. So this is where my type or my font color is going to show up. Since I've already typed, I'm going to need to highlight the type and click here in order to change the color of it. The next thing I notice is that it is very, very tiny. I can't even see it. So I'm going to change the size of the font up here. I'm just going to make it really big. Well, and even that is not that big. Once you get past 72, you have to type in your own numbers. Oh, that's too big. Okay, that'll work. And we're starting to get somewhere. All right, it's no longer a blank canvas. I've got stuff to play with. The first thing, or the next thing I might want to play with, is what that font is. If I want to change the font that I'm working with, you'll notice that my type layer shows up with a little T here. If I want to edit my type, I can double click on the T in the layer, and it brings me back into that type editing mode. I could come through and change my font. And think about what is a good font for the kind of movie that you are making a poster for. Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to need to do some adjusting because it doesn't fit on there. Okay, we'll go with that for now. You can also feel free to download new fonts if you want. There's a website called dafont.com. And of course, I don't have it pulled up right here. But you can go through and find some really fun and interesting, weird fonts. And many of them are free. So feel free to download new fonts for this project if you are so inclined, but you don't have to. I just wanted to let you know that that was an option. So coming back to my Photoshop document, I'm feeling pretty good about this weird font, whatever that is. And as I was saying before, there were two ways that you could approach using the type tool. Well, there's several ways you could approach it. The first way was just to use the type tool and just click in the space. But if I come back here to my type tool and I know that I want my type to be a certain, like within a certain area, I can click and drag and create a bounding box where I can then type, and if there was like a subtitle or whatever, I don't know what that's called, it would keep everything in that bounding box. It's not going to just like keep going off of my canvas. So now I've got two separate type layers. I don't need them both. I was just showing you that you could use that bounding box method. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer by dragging it into the little trash can at the bottom of my layers palette. Some other fun things that you can play with your type are up here again in the sub menu. You'll see this little T with a arch underneath it. This is where you can warp your text if you're interested. I could create an arch. I could do some kind of flag situation. This is looking like something. I'll just wait for that to render. And remember too that with that move tool, you can always grab onto the type and move it around. Now this needs more, right? So at this point, I need some images of cats, obviously. I'm going to go and do a Google search for some cats. But if you have photographs that you would like to use, by all means, use your own photographs. I'm going to take some images from the internet, and this is something that's called appropriation. When you're using someone else's photographs or design. Now, there's a fine line between appropriation and plagiarism. I wouldn't want to take one of these photographs and claim the whole photograph itself as my own, but I could take one of these photographs and I can use part of it in my new image. And because I'm creating something new with it, it falls under the category of appropriation, and that's okay. Now, if you were feeling particularly concerned about that, you can go under settings, in your search settings. Nope. Tools. Oh, usage rights. So if you were concerned, you could go to Creative Commons licenses. I'm not concerned. I'm not going to be taking a whole thing and claiming it as my own. However, also under this tools, you'll see that there is a size option. And for this project, and really for any project that you do in this class, if you are going to use appropriated imagery, make sure that you're looking for large images. This way, they're not going to be all pixely when you copy and paste them into the new document. Okay, so I need a picture of a cat that's going to look really good with some lasers. Oh, this one is good. Okay, so I need that. Now don't just grab the image from this little preview, because this is just a small version. You want to actually go to the website where the image lives. And I'm going to press the control key while I click, and I'm going to save the image as. And just so that I know what it is, I'm going to call it Laser Cat 1. Ooh. All right. If you notice that when you go to save an image, it's not a JPEG, then it's likely not gonna work. So because I see that now, I'm going to cancel, and I guess I can't use that image. So I'm gonna go back to my search, close that. Let's find another good laser cat. Oh, this one's good. This is working on the internet using your phone's hotspot. So what's new? How's things going? All right, I'm gonna stop this situation. And I'm just gonna try and pull it from here. Okay, so it's showing up as a JPEG, that's great. And again, I wanna call this Laser Cat 1. Make sure you know where it's going. I've got my art in the computer folder here. I'll put it into movie poster, make a new folder so that I know this is where I'm getting my source imagery from. And I'll come back to Photoshop. And I'm going to open that file that I just downloaded into my movie poster folder. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just take the whole image and put it into my new movie poster. So I'm going to select all, and then I'm going to come back over to my poster itself and, oh, I didn't copy it, sorry. Select all, then copy. And here I'm going to paste. Now it said it was a large image, but I think it's this tiny because when I was over here in Google, I just took it from here instead of clicking and waiting for the full image to load. So, you know, be patient and go ahead and wait for that to load, even if your internet is slow, so that you really can get the full size image. I'm going to make this larger so that we can see it. I've got my show transform controls on, and I'm going to come over to the corner and I'm going to hold the shift key down while I enlarge this. And you may be thinking, oh, well, why did Rosemary say we should find a large image if we can just go ahead and stretch the image out like that? Well, if we were to really zoom in on this, we'll notice when I stretch it out like that, oops, the computer ends up having to make up some information. And so you might end up with a slightly pixelated image if you do enlarge the image this way instead of going with just finding a big image. So it's working for now. Do I think it's the best way to do it? No. I think the best way to do it is to find a large image and work from a large image. Now, I obviously am going to need to add some lasers to my LaserCat. So maybe you need to add some sort of design feature. Well, we can do things like we can use, how do I want to do this? I'm going to use the lasso tool. And this goes back to what we did last week, where you were making shapes using the marching ants, using one of the selection tools. So again, the lasso tool is one of those selection tools, and it's useful in selecting things to copy and paste, but it's also useful in creating brand new shapes. So I want these lasers to be coming out of the cat's eyes. So I'm going to draw some laser shapes. Yeah, look at that laser. And ultimately what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create another layer, and I'm going to fill in those marching ants using the paint bucket. What color is a laser? I don't know, red. And my paint bucketing that laser. Whoops, it's actually going behind my cat. So remember that the layers over here are a direct relationship to how they show up over here. So I'm just going to grab onto that layer 3 and put it above layer 2 so that the laser is in fact on top of the cat's eyes. To get rid of those marching ants, I'm going to go to select and I'm going to deselect. And it's kind of not the best laser. So I'm going to think about, well, how else could I make a laser? I'm going to use the shape tool. When you hold down on the shape tool, you can choose various different shapes. I'm going to go with the polygon tool because I know that with a polygon tool, I can determine how many sides I want that polygon to have. Up here in my submenu, I've got 3. Well, what's a three-sided polygon? It's a triangle. And remember that when you're making a shape, you want to come up here and choose the shape tool. The shape option as opposed to path or pixels. And here you can choose your fill color and your stroke color. The stroke would be the outline around it. I don't want an outline around it, so I'm just going to leave that. This white box with a red slash through it means nothing, so there's no stroke. So I'm going to draw a triangle. And this is like really far from looking like a laser. But what I can do now, it's created its own layer, and I can come in to my move tool. I can show my transform controls. I can now squish this, and I can move it over, and I can rotate it, and I can move it. And now we've got something that looks more like a laser, right? After you've done that, remember whenever you're using the transform controls, you have to accept those changes. So press the OK button up here or the Enter key on your keyboard. And now I would say this is a more convincing laser than this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that less effective laser. And I'm going to copy this laser. I can do that by dragging this onto that new layer button, and it creates a new copy. And now I can move this laser over here, and I might need to do some adjustments here too. So maybe I need to zoom out a bit. Back to my move tool. Yeah, that's some good laser activity. Zoom in just a little bit more. And I may want to think about, well, a laser is made out of light, right? So it's not going to be this like opaque color. I'm going to come in here, and this is another thing that you can play with. With your layers, you can change the opacity, like how see-through it is. So if something is completely opaque, it's a door. You can't see through it. If it's transparent, it's a window. So if we're lowering the opacity, we're making it more of a window than a door. So now I can see through it a little bit. Yeah, that's good. 56%. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Oops. All right. We're starting to get somewhere. Now, compositionally, I'm not super satisfied with this. So I would probably want to play around a little bit more with where my image is, where the lasers are, where the type is. And let me bring that up here so that I can, oops, wrong one. So I can see the type. At this point, I was just putting some type in to get it started, but now it doesn't really make sense with the rest of my design that I've got started. So I'm going to, and because I like warped it and stuff, I don't want to try to correct it. So I'm gonna just turn that eyeball off because I might want to come back to that. I'm not sure. But I'm gonna just go ahead and I'm just gonna retype it. I'm gonna create a new layer, a new type layer. Return the laser cats. And now I'm thinking, gosh, this would look kind of cool if it was like in this laser. So just like with any other layer, I can show my transform controls and I can rotate my type. Until I've got it where I want it. Now again, compositionally, is this really working? No, it's not. But doing this kind of stuff is a process. You want to work through it, you want to try some stuff, you want to take inspiration from other things that you've looked at. You don't want to just put all of the elements on there and call it done, because likely the first thing that you do is not going to be the best thing. Just like if you were writing a novel, you wouldn't just write the novel on your first go around and then call it good, right? You would write it, you would rewrite it, you would edit it, you would have your editor look at it. I'm just going to make some adjustments to these lasers while I'm talking. Come on, buddy. And then of course, now that I've adjusted that laser, I would need to adjust the type again. But I'm not going to just keep recording myself uh, fooling around with this, because then it would be like a 10-hour video and you don't want that. But now I would want to start thinking about what other elements do I want to include? Do I need to come back into Google and get perhaps a cityscape in order for my laser cat to be attacking? Yes, I definitely need a cityscape. Mm. I'm regretting this decision. It's the internet. Okay, cool. We're just gonna borrow this. Good, it's a JPEG. Again, I'm going to title it so that I know what it is. Come back to Photoshop, open that, select all, copy, paste. Again, it's kind of small, but I can make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, okay. I need to rearrange the layer order here so that it's underneath my lasers. Maybe it needs to be down here. Maybe I need to do some more adjusting of where the lasers are pointing. The pink is no longer making sense, so I would probably go in there and change that. And one last thing that I want to show you is maybe you don't want to just cut and paste or copy and paste rectangles into your new design. You certainly are welcome to, but maybe you would prefer to have the cityscape cut out. So we'll come back over here to the cityscape, and we're going to talk about making a more refined selection. And this is something that we're going to do more of on our next project as well. So it's not a bad idea to try it out this time around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection, and basically I'm going to cut the sky off of this image. You can do this in a number of ways, like everything. The first way that I'm going to suggest trying it is using the quick selection tool. And you choose that, and I'm going to make that brush a little bit bigger. That's very small. I must have been doing something particularly detailed last time I did this. And I'm just going to click and start dragging, and it's going to start making these marching ants for me. And it's pretty good at detecting where it is that the color changes, and bam, it just made that whole selection for me. So now I can copy and paste just that. I'm going to turn off this other one just so that it's not in the way. But you can see here where it's actually cut out the skyline. And again, make that a little bigger. Whoa, ho, ho, hello. Sneak peek, you can do other kinds of transform techniques. And this is now, I think, starting to get a little bit more interesting with that cityscape, excuse me, cut out. It's starting to become a little bit more dynamic, right? Some other things that you may want to consider in your design here are including names of actors that are starring in your film. If we go back here to the movie poster search, notice there's a lot of text on some of these. Maybe dive in, see what that text is. What's your movie rated? Has it won awards? Does it have the Sundance symbol on it? These are all things that you are more than welcome to include, and that will help make your design more dynamic. You want to make sure that your font choices work well together. You want to make sure that you're thinking about the color scheme. Think about creating something unified. Use those elements of design use those elements of design that we talked about last week. Can you create something that has repetition? Do you need repetition? Can you make sure you're thinking about things like balance. Make sure you're thinking about things like variety. You don't want your poster to be boring unless you're making a poster about a safety video for working in a factory, which could be kind of interesting. And side note, I have a friend who that's his job. He makes safety videos for factories. I don't think he makes the movie posters to advertise them though. But really give it some thought, do some planning ahead in thinking about what the movie is, what the overarching theme is, what kinds of imagery, what kinds of color, what kinds of fonts that are you going to use to really create this unified movie poster. Ultimately, I want you to save it as a Photoshop document so that if you ever wanted to go back in and rework it for any reason, you could. But then I want you to turn in a JPEG version of it, okay? We will this is due next week. And I'll post the dates and all of the specific parameters for the assignment in an assignment. Have fun with it. as I'm looking over here on my Google screen, you can't see it, but I can see it. I'm seeing a black and white poster. You don't have to use color. This could be black and white. Are you creating a film noir? Um, you know, again, have fun with it. Think about all of the elements. And as always, email me with any questions that you may have. And um, that's it. Okay. See ya.